It's a Sunday evening in February. 125 million people are watching the same screen at the same time. Social media is on fire. Your group chat is blowing up. Someone's uncle is screaming at a television in another room. And you're just sitting there, maybe scrolling your phone, maybe reading a book, maybe genuinely wondering what all the fuss is about. And the weird part isn't that you don't care about the Super Bowl. The weird part is how guilty you feel about it. Like you're missing something. Like there's some frequency the rest of the world is tuned into and your antenna just doesn't pick it up. Here's the thing though. That feeling, it's not a malfunction. It's actually your brain telling you something fascinating about how human beings build identity, form tribal bonds, and decide what matters. And once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never feel weird about Super Bowl Sunday again. Let's start with what's actually happening in the minds of the people who do care. Because honestly, when you look at it closely, sports fandom is one of the strangest psychological phenomena we engage in. Think about it. You're watching a group of people you've never met, wearing the colors of a city you might not even live in, performing a task that has absolutely zero impact on your daily life. And somehow, when they score, your heart rate spikes. When they lose, your mood tanks for the rest of the night. Some fans literally experience hormonal shifts. Researchers found that male fans watching their team win showed a measurable increase in testosterone levels. Watching them lose, testosterone dropped. Your body is responding as though you personally just competed and you were sitting on a couch eating nachos. This is what psychologists call basking in reflected glory, or berging. It was first studied back in 1976 by Robert Cialdini, who noticed something odd on college campuses. The Monday after a football win, students were significantly more likely to wear their school's apparel, and when researchers called students to ask about the game, they'd say, "We won." But after a loss, it shifted to "they lost." That tiny pronoun switch from "we" to "they" revealed something enormous. People were unconsciously managing their identity through the success and failure of a group they had no actual role in. And I think that's the part most people miss. Fandom isn't really about the sport. It's about identity. It's about belonging. It's about having a tribe in a world that increasingly feels like it doesn't offer you one. So here's the question nobody asks. If fandom is about belonging, what does it mean when someone just doesn't feel it? Because there's a quiet population out there, and it's bigger than you'd think, that has never connected with this particular frequency. Recent data suggests that about 27% of Gen Z actively dislikes sports, not just passively ignores them, but genuinely feels turned off by the whole thing. And this isn't about intelligence or personality type, it's about something much more interesting. Let's go deeper. Your brain is wired to care about things that feel personally relevant. Neuroscientists call this salience. Your attention system is constantly filtering the world, deciding what deserves your limited cognitive resources and what gets pushed into background noise. For someone who grew up going to games with their dad or played football in high school or had a neighborhood where everyone bled the same team colors, sports carry enormous emotional salience. The game isn't just a game, it's connected to memory, to relationships, to a sense of place. When they watch the Super Bowl, they're not just watching football. They're reliving every Sunday their family spent together in front of the TV. They're feeling connected to something bigger than themselves. But if none of those associations were ever built, if your childhood Sundays were about books, or music, or hiking, or video games, then the Super Bowl just looks like a very long, very loud event with a lot of commercials. And your brain quite rationally says, this doesn't concern me. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the pressure to care about the Super Bowl isn't just social, it's almost cultural gravity. This is one of the few remaining communal rituals in modern life. Over 100 million people engaging in the same shared experience at the same time. In a fragmented world where we all watch different shows and scroll different feeds and live in our own algorithmic bubbles, the Super Bowl is one of the last campfires everyone gathers around. And when you don't sit down at that fire, people notice. They don't just notice. They get uncomfortable. You've probably felt this. Someone asks if you're watching the game and you say no, and there's this pause. This tiny moment of social friction. As if you've just admitted something slightly embarrassing. It's subtle, but it's real. And the reason it happens is because communal rituals function as social glue. They're how groups confirm shared identity. When someone opts out, it sends an unconscious signal. I'm not part of this tribe. And for the people who are deeply invested, that can feel almost threatening. Not in a dramatic way, just in a quiet, instinctive way that neither person fully understands in the moment. This connects to something called social identity theory, developed by Henri Tajfel. The core idea is that a huge portion of your self-concept doesn't come from who you are individually. It comes from the groups you belong to, your nationality, your profession, your fandom, even your music taste. These group memberships become part of your psychological identity. And when one of those memberships is activated, like on Super Bowl Sunday, people unconsciously sort the room into us and not us. If you've ever been at a Super Bowl party and felt like an outsider despite being physically present, this is why. You weren't just disinterested in the game. You were outside the identity boundary that the entire event was designed to reinforce. But here's what I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is the part that changes things. Not caring about the Super Bowl isn't a deficit. It's information. It's your brain telling you that your identity, your sense of belonging, your emotional investment, it lives somewhere else. Maybe it's in music. Maybe it's in building something. Maybe it's in a community that has nothing to do with athletics. The psychological need that sports fulfills for fans, the need for tribe, for narrative, for emotional stakes, for something larger than your individual life to root for, that need exists in everyone. It just expresses itself differently. Some people get that rush from following a series with a passionate fan community. Some get it from political movements or creative subcultures. Some get it from gaming, where the stakes feel just as real and the identity investment runs just as deep. The mechanism is identical. A group succeeds and you feel elevated. A group struggles and you feel it in your chest. The only difference is which group your brain decided to care about. And that decision was shaped long before you were old enough to choose consciously. It was shaped by environment, by early emotional associations, by the people who surrounded you during the years when your brain was still building its map of what matters. And I think that's the part that deserves more compassion. On both sides, the fan who can't understand how anyone could not care about the biggest game of the year, they're not being oblivious. They're genuinely confused because for them, this event is deeply woven into their emotional architecture. It's not just entertainment, it's identity. And the person who sits in the corner at the Super Bowl party, half smiling, pretending to understand what just happened, they're not broken. They're just wired to find their meaning somewhere else. Here's what honestly gets me about this whole thing. We spend so much energy feeling like something's wrong with us for not caring about the things everyone else seems to care about. Not just sports, everything. The trending show, the viral moment, the thing you're supposed to have an opinion about, and most of the time, the discomfort isn't about the thing itself. It's about the fear that your indifference reveals something about your capacity to connect. But it doesn't. It reveals the opposite, actually. It reveals that your capacity to connect is specific. It's selective. Your brain doesn't waste emotional energy on generic belonging. It seeks the belonging that actually fits. And in a world that constantly pressures you to care about everything, the quiet act of knowing what genuinely moves you, that's not apathy. That's clarity. So next Super Bowl Sunday, when 100 million people gather around the yet same screen and your brain just shrugs, let it. You're not missing out on something essential. You're just tuned into a different channel. And there are millions of people on that channel with you, each quietly building their identity around the things that actually light them up inside. The real question was never, why don't you care about the Super Bowl? The real question, and the much more interesting one, is what do you care about so deeply that it shapes who you are without you even realizing it? I'd love to hear your answer to that. Drop it in the comments. Not what you think you should say, what actually pulls you in, what you'd stay up late reading about or talking about or thinking about when you should probably be sleeping. Because whatever that thing is, that's where your tribe is, and I promise you it's just as valid as any stadium full of screaming fans.